Why are white men so being demonized in today's culture? I have made a video with this young Chinese kids. His name is Charlie Chian. Charlie Chian gave a really good analysis, should you say, an anecdotal, where he spoke about the vitriol, the hatred, the racism comments on TikTok and many other places on the news. And this has become the view of many around the world today. So, and I've addressed that, and that video is doing exceptionally well. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go and check it out. Maybe we can put a link. Maybe Darth Vader, if you're not too busy, you can put a link of that video there. Oh, I can do it on my phone, doing while we listen to this. But the thing is, I've gotten some really good comments on this video, but at the same time, I got some really, really bad ones, especially coming from Black people. Especially coming from Black people. They were saying, man, you're not with us. You're not with us. So, in essence, by me making a video calling out the hypocrisy and the racism of Black folks or Chinese or other races toward whites, I was a bad individual for doing that. By being a Christian, to love my neighbor as myself, to talk about godly principles and to forgive one another, to work with each other, to live as one unit. That message didn't sit well with some individuals. That I got some very hate, hate, or even some death threats in my emails to tell me you need to shut up. You better not be talking about this. And I smile and I laugh because one of the things about me is that I'm very rebellious, especially when truth is on my side. So the thing is, nevertheless, we're gonna move on with that. I could care less how some people feel. The fact or the fact. Okay, you can't sit here and wield the sword of racism while you are ready to cry against racist. You behave as a racist and against a person who is Caucasian, and then as soon as something supposed racist happens to you, and a lot of time is just stereotypes, a lot of time is just civilians not surrendering to the commands of police, we turn that around and we call everything racist that are not even racist. Where true racism is happening, you neglect that. And I call you on your hypocrisy, because this has nothing to do with being blacks. It's pure immorality and hypocrisy. And we are lacking that in our culture today. And sending me funny looking emails ain't gonna change my perspective about that. And I have spoken about police brutality in this channel. I've also spoken about any level of injustice that's happening to any particular people. I've also spoken about what's happening to the Asian. I've spoken about what's happening to the Black culture, how they need to be understood, knowing where they come from. So this is not an lopsided perspective I have, but I have to address the matter for what they are, depending on the content of the video. That's how I do my thing. So those who like it, thumbs up. Those who don't, I feel bad for you. I'm praying for you, but we're moving forward. Now, in this video, I want you to hear what's happening in the streets. And I think this is happening in Britain, if I'm not mistaken. So listen to the perspective of some individuals concerning the Caucasian race. Let's take a listen.
What's a straight white men good for?
Straight white men?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
How's it going? My name is Jess and this is Reasons. Here in Shoreditch asking people, are straight white men the problem? What are straight white men good for?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I don't know.
Do you think straight white men are important?
Oh.
Do you think straight white men are important?
No.
We're utter fucking trash.
I mean, sometimes I like how rational sometimes they might be, like really straightforward, like even about feelings. They are more like practical sometimes.
What are straight white men good for?
Being rude and making you feel uncomfortable.
What would you say that they're good for?
This is crazy. You see, this is the perspective of some individuals out in the world today. I was talking to my wife and we were having somewhat of a heated discussion about this, because she had the perspective that not so much similar to their view, but she was more coming from, you have to know that there are white individuals in position of leadership that are controlling the masses. But what she was helping me to see, which actually I appreciate, she was saying this perspective is not theirs. This is a perspective that's been given to them. They were taught to see white people that way. These are white people talking against white people. You understand? So these are white people who's been taught to hate their own ethnicity, and so much so that they become self-loathing. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, you made a good point. Like, whatever is teaching them this view is the evil, not them in particular, because they're just human beings. Thus, the what's happening behind the scene is the real evil that needs to be addressed. Now, let's skip. By the way, oh, she's just calling too at the same time. So let's finish listening to this.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Don't know.
Are straight white men important?
I mean, they think they're very important. You know, they're just as important as everyone else, but I do sometimes they get a bit inflated sense of self.
Do you think they're important?
No.
So what would you say they're good for?
I don't know. I mean, they've got value, obviously, but the problem is that it's been them exclusively. So they're good at things, but just not everything all the time.
Do you think they're good for in society?
Wow, what a perspective. Just imagine for a minute the same notion, the same spirit, the same attitude, the same answers given either about a Jew, about the Chinese, right? The Asian culture. I dare you have these perspective about blacks. Whew, what are they good for? Good for nothing. Well, I guess they have value. You see, this is what happens when you hear consistently in the media this lopsided perspective of racism where this thing is not properly balanced. This is what happens when you go to these secular schools and you are taught CRT, critical race theory, and you get this twisted, revised version of history that is not properly balanced. This is what happens when you are raised in a culture where you spend more time on your phone than you spend time reading and studying and searching for yourself. This is what happens when a culture lacks common sense. Somebody says common, it doesn't make sense today anyway. Common no longer makes sense today. Anyway, this is what happens when God is dethroned from the hearts of individuals. You start looking at people with a very dark lens instead of seeing individuals for who they are as God creation instead of a color. You see, this is the issue that's going on here, because what happened? Whatever happened to judging each other by the content of our character instead of the color of our skin? Whatever happened to that message? Oftentimes it is preached when it comes to the black race, when it comes to other culture. But when it comes to the white man, that notion, that message, that perspective no longer applies. I wonder why. Who is changing the scope here? Somebody say, man, you got to say something. Listen, I did some studies about what happened during the Hutus and the Tutsis genocide. Friends, I'm telling you, if you don't know, please go find out. What they have managed to do through the means of the media and even the church, shame on us, even the church were preaching this. They had demonized the Tutsis, so much so that when it was time to grab the machetes and beginning to slash their own brother, they were living together prior to that. They were friends and family, but they came a political division and also a religious division. But through the media, the Hutus were being told consistently how to hate the Tutsis. this became a reason why that they needed to go to war. It's good to study that because, in essence, what I'm trying to say here, history tends to repeat itself in rhythm. This message, these people's perspective, it won't be long. It won't be long before we start seeing serious backlash, serious violence against Caucasian folks. I've also heard this is happening already. I've seen pictures of older individuals getting beat up. Somebody shared with me recently a young lady taking a grandmother, beating and dragging her in the streets. Like, this perspective is already bearing fruit. So this is why we need to speak about this, because this is not happening to any other race, as I know for certain right now. This is happening primarily to white people. So why aren't we talking much more about this? Why aren't we raising our voice against this? Where are the social justice warriors when you need them? Where are the Black Lives Matter can't, they white, so they can't help them. So you see, this is the thing, and it gets under my skin because some of these people, they're my friends. Some of these people are my church members. Some of these people are my pastors. I sit and we plan together. We talk together. Our families, their children come to my house and my children go to their house. So these are the people you're demonizing here. So you got to understand, I have a duty. One of my sons is half white. What are we going to do with him? Are we going to cut him in half?
If they give them their bank card, that's pretty good.
That they occupy too many positions of power.
Yes.
Like what?
What am I allowed to say?
What do you want to say?
Straight white old men in government, I don't think have a clue on how people want to live or need to live.
Do you think there are many straight white men in government?
I believe there is, yeah. I believe quite high up on what you're seeing on the media. It's a lot more sort of.
You know what's amazing about some of these perspectives that they're putting forth? Most of the straight white men they're speaking against are Republican white men, the Christian white men. They don't have an issue with white men who are Democrats so much. They don't. The people they really are demonizing are the Republicans, the conservatives, the people who happens to be Christian and hold a particular view. That's really where they're aiming at. And this is the danger of this perspective. Let's keep going.
They're the ones that dictate to us, and they're the ones that tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing and what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do.
What are straight white men good for in society?
Diversity. Oh.
Do you think straight white men hold too many positions of power in society?
Yeah.
What are straight white men good for?
I don't know, sometimes they bash out a good few pop hits, bit of Shawn Mendes,
Do you think that the system is against anyone who isn't a straight white male?
I mean, I would say it's like a system based on heteronormative hegemony and like binary system. So they expect that a certain.
This is crazy, right? Some of these people are either, blatantly ignorant or willful ignorant. When you go as far as looking at just the rise of this country from the founding fathers to what happened during slavery and the notion that was leading behind that, which it was done by the Democrats, by the way. The Republicans came about to push back against it. This is why we had a war in the South. But the thing is, while they are holding this hatred toward straight white men, majority of the people who fought against slavery were white men with blacks coming together in war to fight to abolish slavery. Majority of the people who went to fight as Christians were also white. They were the one pushing forward, saying enough is enough, wrote against it, spoke against it. So what I'm trying to say is there is such an improper perspective that they have. And it's very twisted because of the way they've been educated to think of a culture of ethnicity. Instead of seeing character, they're seeing color. So they are not really seeing all the facts for what they are. Now, think about it. Slavery was abolished in America before it was abolished in various parts of Africa, the Ottoman Empire, the with the Muslims and so on, who were selling the slaves. It's been said years after slavery was abolished in America, things were still happening in Africa. Even as we speak today, there are still levels of slavery happening in these countries as well. So what I'm trying to say is the same straight white men you have an issue with are the ones who've given you the freedom to even speak this kind of nonsense. And secondly, the same straight white men that you have an issue with all your brothers and sisters who are leading this nation that we have today as the greatest nations in the world. It's more than skin color for me, because I know there are multiplicity of individuals that are leading, but as they addressing and talking about straight white men, I'm not necessarily understanding if they understand the significance of people generally in their lives, instead of looking at a color just to demonize them according to the perception they've been given either through the media or their education and so on. It is so demonic. It is so evil. It's actually sad to watch, because this is the perspective that is most dominant either in our schools, in our politics today. This stuff is creeping in the church, by the way. Yes, it is. This stuff is really bad. But this is where we are.
Certain body inform a certain behavior, which I feel it's the mistake.
People I know, like, it run businesses are straight white men.
Why do you think that is?
It's just the way the system's built, I think.
How?
These are hard questions, Reese. You gotta help me here.
No, it's all new.
Why do you think that there are so many men in positions of power?
It's that old school elite, isn't it? That's what's grown up, and it's still that stigma of that women aren't as powerful, women aren't as. We're getting there. We are slowly getting there, but we're nowhere near where we should be. It should be equals, not just men.
Now, do you also feel the spirit of feminism behind some of these answers as well? So this is not happening by chance, friends. This is a perspective. This is a way of thinking. It's becoming the norm today to demonize any group of individuals, especially whites. I'll say this. If we live in a time where Black people were consistently being talked about this way, I will be making videos talking about them. I'm one of those guys. Listen, wherever I see the crap. I'm not trying to curse. I'm a Christian. Wherever I see the crap, the nonsense, okay, should I say the BS? Call it, expose it, and call people to change. It's just my perspective. It's just the way I approach it. Since this is being done to white, Caucasian male, therefore, it's my duty to speak about that as well. The thing is, we either going to do what Jesus tells us to do, or we're gonna play this identity politics and keep on demonizing a specific group of people just because we were told in the media how to feel about that. So anyway, I want to see if I can share this passage with you, and we're moving on. All right, let's go to Matthew 22 for this one. Matthew 22, look what it says here. Jesus says, Master, the question was asked to Jesus, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Boom. Two great commandments. Christ summarized the first 4 commandments in the Decalogue. And secondly, the last 6 commandments in the Decalogue, which summed up as 10. First one is to love God. The second one is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Oftentimes we talk about loving people. I had to do a little bit of preaching over the weekend, and part of my emphasis had to do with thou shalt love thy neighbor as yourself. And the question is, do you love yourself? It's a simple truth, right? A simple question. Do you love yourself? Do you love the person that you are? Are you happy with the person that you are? You see, most of these people who have issue with white people who are consistently complaining and backbiting and cursing and throwing all these racist vitriol against them, most of them don't even have proper self-love. Now, there is self-love where you can be content in your own skin and happy with the person that you are in relation to God and your neighbor. When you know how to love yourself, now get this, then you can love your neighbor as yourself. This is so significant. The reason I'm saying this, most of these people who hate a particular group of individuals, especially white people right now, straight white men, okay? These are people who hate themselves. These are people, when they look at themselves in the mirror, and they have not come to a place where they value their own existence, their own skin color, their own ethnicity, their own personhood, their own character. And the reason that is because they don't have love for God. You see, when you love the Lord, when you love God and you know God loves you, you will naturally love yourself. And when you love yourself, you can't help but to love anybody else, because what you don't want to be done to you, you will not want them to be done to anybody else. The same love you want to give it to your neighbor. The reason you can love your neighbor as yourself is because you see your value. And if you find your value in God, you will love your neighbor as well. It just flows, man. It's a perfect connection. So if you hate yourself, if you hate the person that you are in the morning by looking at you, you hate your physicality. What do you think all this transgender stuff is all about? It's all about self-hate. It's all about self-loathing. It's all about low self-esteem. It's all about a poor self-conception. That's where it's coming from. Why did this come from? They hate themselves, they hate their neighbors, and they hate God because they've been taught to do that. This is where this has come from. And the issue is they doing this thinking they're helping the cause, but they're hurting themselves. Because you have to understand, at the end of the day, regardless of skin color, we're all connected. Your pain or my pain, my suffering is your suffering. The things that I go through have an impact on you. There is a domino effect to the human family. That's why when George Floyd died, look at the ripple effect that it had in the world. You understand? Anything that happens to a particular person around you has an impact on you. No man lives on an island. So when they're saying get rid of this particular race because we don't like them, we don't see their value, we don't see their significance, in essence, you are cutting your own legs. That's what's happening. But the thing is, it all rooted in self-hate. And when you love yourself as God loves you, you will love your neighbor as yourself. And there's some things you will never even let cross your mind. You won't even allow the thought of seeing a person because of the color of their skin. Now, it's one thing you hating the rich who are at the top, the elitists that are calling the shots, these individuals who are pressing the buttons, those who are saying you can't speak this, you can't say that. I can understand that. But the average white person who is on Social Security, who has all health issues, that are in nursing homes, the average white men that are in the streets today, some of them are your mothers and your fathers. These are the ones you're talking about when you talk about hating them. Do you see how imbalanced they are in their perspective? Let's move on. Much more could be said.